Okay, Ben Wildman. How you doing, boss?
Doing good. Good to be here, mate. Good to be here. Been a long time, but good to see you in the flesh.
Good to see you. So we used to work together, coaching, back in the day. And you left in 2020, I think we realized it was.
Yeah.
Tell us what you've been up to since then. Yeah. Give us a timeline.
Yeah, so I met you coaching North London.
Yeah.
And I'm still coaching to this day.
Yeah,
so,
football,
by
the
way.
way.
Football coaching, or if you're American soccer. So I work, in a professional academy now, 2 days a week, coaching, which is good, where I live. But then I also work, a full-time job is director of training for a Christian charity. So we train sports coaches around the world. So I now help train coaches. So we now train others. And we started in Ethiopia, 2002, the organization, not me. But then, I've been with this organization for 10 years. This is my 10th year now. And so, we train coaches, like I said, in the developing world. And now in 19 different countries we're working, coaching over 12,000 different coaches. Yeah.
When you say the development world, are you referring to what most people would know as third world countries?
So it's a bit like you got to be careful with all these words.
But that's what you mean,
so it's like
the developing countries.
Well, we're now so starting in Ethiopia, so in East Africa, and then we expanded to West Africa, and then was in Southeast Asia, so Thailand from there, and then South America, and then now we're working a bit more in North America, Canada more recently, and in there as well. So there's majority of them, like I say, majority of our 12,000 coaches are in East and West Africa. That's the majority of our coaches,
How and why did you get into that charity?
It's a long story, but so my first degree was in sports management, and I've always loved football. My dad was a PE teacher. He was a teacher for 30 years in the same school. So I've always got that from him. But then as I've been coaching now for over 13 years, and after I got injured playing sport, I just went into coaching. And I've just kind of been on this coaching journey. And in 2014, after university, I was invited to go over to Malawi. My mum's youth worker, he actually worked over there as a communications manager.
Your mum's youth worker?
Yeah, so an older guy, he went over there and he was working there in Malawi. And he said to me, this is a perfect organization for you to work with. He's known me from a kid. And he was like, come over after university. So the day after my last exam, got on a plane and went over to Malawi. And I went over there and I was like, this is something that I've always wanted to do. Then ever since then, I've kind of stayed with him. And then I'm in this role. I've done this role for 2 years as director of training. Yeah.
Okay, so this is something I've always wanted to do. That's what you just said. Let's go back to primary school. In primary school, when I grow up, I want to be
I think in primary school, I just want to have as much fun as possible. I think it's interesting. I ask kids now what they want to do, and they always say gamer or YouTube or whatever. I can't even remember exactly. They want to be like you, Alex, a YouTuber, and they want it. It's like, what do you want to do? For me, I don't know. I now look at it now, and I think as an adult, I can answer that. I want to do something now which I'd be willing to do for free. So I want to be in a role, in a job where I'd be willing to do this for free, right? Yeah. Now, that's for me is doing something my passion. If you're able to do something where money is no object, I think that's an amazing free thing. Now, I kind of did that because I'm with a charity. I did work for free for a while, and but now I'm in a paid role, which now I'm able to do. But I'm in a position now I'm able to do that. But I would say my mum and dad influenced me a lot. My dad being a PE teacher, I didn't want to do exactly that. I wanted to do the sports coaching thing, which I've done. And my mum was she's always been a nurse. So I've got this carer and education thing. And I kind of think I've combined both of them together, working for an organization that it's not just the sports side of things, but it's education. It's working on holistic development. How do you help young people and help change and transform communities? It's the power of sport is there and the power of a coach is there. But what about education and what about the other needs that they need? Yeah. So that's kind of what we kind of do is all about that holistic transformation. So I would say my mum and dad have influenced me a lot, but I can't remember what I said as a primary school. I probably just wanted to play sport.
Okay. So where did you grow up?
In Newcastle, the northeast of England, if you can tell by my accent. I'm a long way from home. Yeah, that's it. All right, man. I can go Geordie if you want, but no one would understand it. So you'd have to get subtitles on the button down here. So yeah, you might have to get that anyway. But yeah, Newcastle. Yeah, my parents chose to live in one of the roughest areas in Newcastle. So they were part of a church plant, so it was a really rough area. Wow. So we grew up in a place which was I remember there was no grass. and we were on a street, and there was like the park. There was no it was pretty rough area. There was glass on the ground and stuff. But I'm grateful for that because I remember there was a guy at the street who my mum and dad you can't really be friends with him because he's a bit of a character. But I was able to be in this environment, which was it was a bit deprived and that kind of thing. But we lived in this area, and that actually was really good for me for my grounding because I've always been very, because of that upbringing, always been able to relate to people who maybe have been in a hard situation, under-resourced area, and now I'm working with people to try and help them in under-resourced communities around the world. So I look at that and I'm grateful that I grew up in a place like that. And Newcastle, it's a place where people are very friendly and there's a lot of good things about it. So I've definitely been influenced by that. Yeah.
Just quickly, in Newcastle, is it really one club or is it the two?
No, Newcastle is the one city, so it's Newcastle. Yeah, there's no Manchester. You've got a split, right? City United. Newcastle is only Newcastle. Sunderland's a few miles away, but it's a different place. Okay. So that's why it's unique, and that's why Newcastle. Yeah, everyone is Newcastle basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's who you support, yeah?
I support Newcastle United. Okay. There are lots of things. We're not going to get into that Saudi ownership, please, because that'll be a whole different podcast. But yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think you can't change. I can't change the club that I'm a Geordie, so I'm my parents live 3-4 miles away, something from the ground, so it's not that far away. The ownership around that, there's a lot of things that have come out about them, which I think a lot of people probably maybe have heard a little bit about, but that exposure, it's just around.
Can you give us 3 bullet points, because I have no idea.
All right, okay, so basically the people who own Newcastle United, there's some things that happen in the country of Saudi Arabia which are a little bit controversial in terms of human rights issues and that kind of thing.
Getting migrant workers over and taking their passports. Is it that?
It's loads of different things with it. Yeah, the death penalty and stuff like that. All this different kind of thing. The way they treat even people would be concerned about the LGBT stuff. So all that kind of stuff. There's a load of different ways they run their country, and it's they've kind of sport washed. They've bought Newcastle and said, we're going to do this to try and almost, some people would be to get them a good reputation, despite what's going on behind the scenes with how they kind of run things. And so, yeah.
What about Man City?
Yeah, it's a similar thing. Yeah. So obviously that's a similar thing. Yeah.
I mean, does it matter who owns the club?
Well, it's one of those things that if I went to the stadium or bought their kit, am I buying into that? Am I agreeing with what they're doing? But then you could say that about everything. So this is why it gets a bit of a minefield.
Exactly.
But there are also things, where do you draw the line though? With the World Cup, in Qatar, how many people, migrant workers, died by building those stadiums? Just like they used to in the Colosseum, the gladiators died, blood was shed for people's entertainment. Yeah. That kind of happened for the World Cup, and people still just watched it, and some people boycotted it. But there's all this, where do you draw the line on where you think is the right place to I'm not gonna support Newcastle, I'm not gonna watch the World Cup because there's some big issues that you believe are happening. So it's an interesting thing around that. So
sorry.
Go on. No, go on.
There's a slight bit of hypocrisy with a lot of football fans, because the next one's being held in the States.
Yeah, America, apparently it's
Mexico and Canada. Canada as well, but I think most of them are in the States.
What's the problem with that?
I mean, if we're talking about human rights violations, I think America is one of the biggest perpetrators of, unnecessarily dropping bombs on countries that have absolutely nothing to do with America at all.
And this is the thing as well. We look at the British history as well. So
listen, there's no point.
This is a minefield. But that point is a big thing. Who are we to?
We're going to point fingers at
exactly.
say Qatar for the way they treat gay people or migrant workers.
Exactly.
And we have to address America dropping bombs on Muslim children that. Most of them have no idea where America is.
Yeah. But look at this. If you point one finger, there's 3 pointing back at you.
Precisely.
So, yeah.
But maybe. Okay.
Minefield there, but yeah.
I think, okay, so cool. Look, we could do that all day. Who owns this and am I supporting? It's everything with everything. Let's leave that. Newcastle being owned by Saudi money, the money side of things. Are you excited about the money side of things, what it could do? I know there's financial fair play now, so you can't do what Chelsea did back in the day or what City did.
Yeah, well, we're in a position now, obviously, that we're going to probably have to sell maybe one of our better players, like if Isaac or Bruno, like probably because
that defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, but this is the thing with it. You've got to balance the books because of the FFP. You have to now be in a position where it's sustainable. So it's not like yes, we might be the richest team in the world, but because of those things, we can't just go and buy anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yes, we have, but I quite like the people we brought in, like Dan Burn, for example. He's came from Brighton. Didn't cost an extortionate amount of money. He's from Blythe, North Newcastle. Local lad, came back in. People like Jacob Murphy, in the Champions League game against PSG, he was there with a massive grin on his face. They're the people that's a good story for me. But then you can't deny we've bought players like Joe Linton for 40 million, Isaac, Bruno. Kieran Trippier was the biggest signing we had because we signed a leader of Atletico Madrid. He said when he went into training, Simeone would not get him to say good morning. They would have to greet each other and say champions because that was the mentality that they had to win the league. Now they won La Liga, and I think Trippier's brought that mentality to Newcastle. Yeah. And he's the one who has raised the standards of the whole club. So you can talk about like Joe Linton coming in or Isaac, one of the best young strikers. Maybe he'll sign for your club, Arsenal. Who knows? And he might win the league.
Who's that?
Alexander Isaac, yeah.
I've
Swedish
never heard.
striker. Okay.
Oh, Isak.
Yeah, Isak.
Oh,
yeah,
him.
Yeah.
He was meant to come to Arsenal, wasn't he?
We got him, but so I think Trippier was a key signing. But then, we've still got to upgrade our squad. Like this season, Champions League, we're in the group of death. But I think if we had a better squad, then we would have done better. Because I think 2 games a week when we played those good teams, all the cups we were in, when we had a lot of injuries as well. I think if we can get a better squad, then I'm excited about that. So yeah, if we can balance the books and not go crazy. I always said let's do a step-by-step thing. Let's not just go crazy with it. Let's have progression. And I think there has been, and it will take time, a few seasons where we're able to be maybe challenging. But I think that's still, a while away. If you look at the likes of Man City, Liverpool, even Arsenal as well. But we'll see.
How would you feel about working for Newcastle, maybe handling like their social responsibility side of things? Is that something that you would consider?
I think obviously they've done stuff like on Amazon. They've done the Newcastle documentary "We Are United" and stuff, and they've obviously tried to say the good things that they've done. And there's no denying they've done great stuff for the women's side for Newcastle United, and loads of other good positive things. But I think there's definitely awareness that needs to be raised around some of these issues. And I think it's quite good that we can actually have conversations like this. You said you weren't aware of that kind of stuff. So putting that on people's radars and being like, let's actually think about some of these things is good. It's a positive thing. Not saying this is what you should do or you shouldn't do. I'm not telling any Newcastle fan you shouldn't do this or you should do this. But I think raising awareness of some of these things and having a discussion about it is quite important to think about some of these things.
So would you consider a role as their social responsibility person?
I don't know if they want this first, but I always said if I want to go back to Newcastle, it has to be, I have to know I'm called to go back there. So you know what? I've moved away. I've got my family and stuff now, and I've got a life there. So it would have to be the best role possible for me to move my whole family back there. But I don't think I'm going to do that. So
let's go back to your personal life growing up and all of that stuff. Are your parents still together?
They are. Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
One younger brother. Yeah.
What does he do?
An accountant. Yeah.
Okay, so you failed in the eyes of your parents. I'm joking.
It depends on what you think, because my brother has always been good in that. That side of things. My mum joke said he did a much harder degree. My degree was sports management. I've done 2 degrees now. I've done sports management. When I met you, I was studying in London, a degree in theology and crossing cultures. And I did leave a corporate job. I was working in Europe's largest health and fitness environment. My dad did turn around and say, "Why are you leaving this job? Because it's a job that you wanted before university. Why are you leaving this?" But there was a whole story around it. But I ended up going to India, was why I basically did it. And I went over there, and I went over for 2 months, and that changed my perspective on life around, okay, I could keep going and working in this way, and I could just work in a company and just, do the normal stuff. Or I have seen what life's like over in somewhere like India, and I've realized the power of sport, because I connected through sport with loads of these street kids that I did Street Kids Project. Right. And that was something that then changed my mind. I was like, hang on, that sport is an amazing thing, but these kids were from one of the poorest slums in Rajasthan. And I was thinking, these kids, even if they get education and stuff, what chance have they really got of, doing something, because they're trapped in a kind of a society which was hard, And at that point I was like, I want to do something different with my life. And I want to do something which actually, okay, it's not going to be the traditional route. So you say a failure. Maybe to some people they say, well, I work for a charity. I know it's a joke, but this is something that people would say, when my dad had to wrestle with this, like, you had this thing. It was a solid, safe job. And you've now moved away and you've done this for like the last, like I say, over 10 years. That was 11, nearly 12 years ago. And what on earth are you doing? But for me, it is worth it because you're doing something which makes, I think, trying to make a difference, and you're part of something which is not just your normal, balancing the books, for example. Not to say that's bad. My brother, he's listening. That's great. But I'm just saying, when I've experienced something like that, I wanted to pursue it, and that's why I did do it. So depends what you think is success, right? And what's failure.
In obviously, I'm Nigerian originally, and in my culture, you got to be an accountant, a doctor, a lawyer. Anything else other than that is you failed. So that's that. It was a joke based off of that, like parents, Nigerian parents, and how they view things. So the going to India, and let's go back to what I called Football Without Borders. What is it actually called?
So Sports Friends is who I work for, so it's a Christian organisation. We train coaches that are part of churches to have that holistic development. So that's kind of what we do, So, but my role is director of training, but India was before that. So that was, I actually, at the time, was in a relationship with someone who was on a gap year for university. She ended up booking it. I didn't book it at all. So she did it, and I was like, I want to come with you, because she went to Ghana at the start of the year, and then we ended up splitting up, and I ended up going by myself, didn't know anything about the project, and went over there and spent time in India by myself, having done no research, and was there, and that's why it was like, that for me was like the crossroads of my life.
Right.
And I was like, I went there, spent time with the poorest of the poor, and I was like, had a proper identity crisis, being like, hang on, what on earth is going on here? Like, and that was when, to be honest, I was broken inside, because I was broken from that relationship. But at that point, I spent time, I was living with Hindus. I spent time, there was a girl who was a Muslim. She gave me a Quran to read. I then read the New Testament. I started thinking about the bigger things in life, around stuff that people don't normally have the time to think about. And as I was doing that, that was when I kind of got to the point where I'm going to be like, this is something I want to pursue. And it was something that I looked at all different religions and stuff, and it was like, religion says do. But the difference was, I found when I read the New Testament, it was like, this is what Jesus has done for me. So I can accept that. So that changed my life. Around that. I started taking my faith more seriously. And then I realized the power of sport as well. So those two things have always been, because of that moment, something that I've always...
Were your parents religious?
Christian, yes.
And they took you to church every Sunday?
When I was growing up, I was mentioning that church plant, so in that area and stuff, growing up, But then it became my own faith. So when that was when I was 21. When I was in India, like, I massively walked away from that. I'd just been in a company. I worked like 177 days in a row. I was chasing that dream. Like, that was what I was going after. So I'd lost who I was in the process of it. And it took me going to the middle of India to be like, what is the purpose of my life? Like, what's the point in what I'm doing? And like, having that relationship breakup as well. Like, I just was questioning a lot of things. And that was in that point when I was like, I want to live my life, not for myself anymore, but I want to live my life for a higher cause, for a higher purpose. And that was when I had my own revelation of what I wanted to do and live my life back.
I think the whole point of charity should be to help developing situations be able to fend for themselves and do for themselves and begin to thrive. However, the charity that I see in the West is we will give you, we will give you and give you and give you, and it's as if they don't want to give enough for those guys to start doing well. They just want to keep them dependent on the charity. What do you think about the difference between the two?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I think I've just read a book called Toxic Charity, and it talks about this, like about actually, or another one, like when helping hurts. So you can think you're helping, but you're actually hurting. And actually this thing around, like you say there, the just giving and that dependence thing is something that actually is like really very detrimental. So what we're trying to do is come alongside and actually in partnership, like you say, is two-way. And so our whole organization is a training organization. So we're not providing money, we're not providing like huge jobs, but we're coming alongside. And this is why we work with the local church, because they're already there. They know the culture, they know the issues that young people are facing. They know this, right? We're not coming in saying you're going to have this amazing, these things and it's going to change and do this kind of thing. We're going to give education, knowledge and training. Like, we train to be a coach. We're going to come alongside and give that. And then they're the people who are the ones who are going to try and do the change and transformation in this society and community.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do it. So it's about that empowering, like you say, it's about that partnership and relationship. And like I said, we're in 19 different countries, and these 19 countries learn from each other. We're in Nigeria, one place. The Nigerians that we have there, our Nigerian staff, we recently went to Thailand to do a global gathering, and they're sharing what they do in Nigeria, and people in Thailand are listening and being like, we could do that in Thailand. Or the guys in South America and Peru are like, this is what we do. And the people in Ethiopia are like, oh yeah, it's a great idea. So there's this mutual learning that's happening. It's not saying that people in the West have all the answers. It's saying like, what does this look like for us to actually try and change lives and transform communities? There's different needs everywhere. But what does that look like to try and help do that? And we do that through training. We do it through training, resources, mentoring. These three things are really important. And like you say, it's not dependent. It's meant to be coming alongside. Our actual logo, when I actually joined, was an Ethiopian handshake and a US hand, a black handshake and a white hand. Because a guy from America went over to Ethiopia and started the organization. And he met his soul brother called Brahanu. There's a book called Soul Brothers you can read by Trip Johnston. And he basically had this idea of coming alongside in partnership to do this. It wasn't just someone, like you say, helping with dependence. Yeah. It was getting alongside and in brotherhood, like in that way, being able to do this together. And that's what he's kind of created now. 280,000 young people every week, part of like teams with coaches who are people who it's trying to not be dependent and to try and break away from that. I'm not saying we've got it perfect because there's no such thing as a perfect organization. But what you said there, we're trying to do, it's through education. It's not just give people a fish, it's teaching them, training, to fish, that kind of thing,
Ben, why doesn't Jay-Z, Elon Musk, the owners of all the Premier League football clubs and the Saudi clubs put money in a pot and just fix the whole world?
But money doesn't solve everything. You could have all the money in the world and it wouldn't solve some of these things. So like if you need education, you need training, you need specialist things, specialist knowledge to be able to deal with issues in certain places. Let's just take an example in Malawi, right? Some people they donated all this money and got malaria nets, right? They flew over, they got down, they went down this massive escarpment, they got to the bottom, they give all out the mosquito nets, they come back a month later and someone comes back and the village chiefs have ended up convincing them to get rid of them and use them as fishing nets instead. So then all that money and all that stuff, all the good intentions, these people have come over, brilliant, trying to deal with malaria, right?
Right.
And then they're using them because the ingrained thing is we need this money, we want to use them for fishing because the fish is more important than the malaria. So if you gave all this money to then give all this stuff like mosquito nets or all this kind of stuff, I don't think it solves the cultural stuff of people that are trapped in stuff because of the way people think. And that's why I think all the money in the world, there's been loads of money that's been put into a lot of stuff charity-wise. But I think it's about walking alongside people to understand the real issues. Like, is it poverty? Why? What is it? Gang violence? Why? Why is it like actually addressing the root? Yeah. Not actually just saying, we're going to give this, like you say, donations or we'll do this. You've got to get to the root and that takes time and it's not sexy, it's not glamorous. And everyone wants a quick thing and especially in this day and age, put on social media, this is what we're doing. Look how good we're doing with our charity stuff. Look at us and get a kick from it. And the influencers do that as well, right? But actually, if you want to get to the root issues, if you think about a Nigerian context, what they face is different to maybe what we face over here, right?
Right.
What does that look like to try and tackle some of that stuff? Where you need specific knowledge, specific education, and you do maybe need money, but all the money in the world wouldn't. Nigeria is a rich country, but the fact that there's so much other stuff that's happened, with all the corruption, everything like that, and everything else, Nigeria should be thriving like other places. It should be more than what it is. But that's an example. But my thing, anyway, I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, it does, and I agree. I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah. I asked you so you could give.
All right, you set me up for that one.
Yeah. So, Ben, you are married and have a child.
Yeah.
And you did this post Instagram and dating apps and stuff.
What, had a child? Or
did you not get married post the modern times?
No, we met online, yeah.
You met online?
Yeah.
What year?
2018, I think it was, yeah.
You met in 2018?
Yeah.
Exactly, that's my point.
Oh, okay.
So I'd say 2010, because I think Instagram came out in 2010.
Yeah, 9, 10.
Yeah. And since then, there's a guy that girls want. Yeah. And I think most guys would take most girls, but there's a certain guy that most girls want. I would say, right? And I think these things has made what you've done almost impossible, but you've done it. You met a girl and you've had a child and you're married. How?
So
Where's my pen?
So I think that for me, it's like, obviously we're both Christians, so that's a massive thing. Like, and so that's the thing that brought us together. Like that, we have the same values. She actually was brought up in Kenya. She lived in Kenya for 10 years. She's a grandparents from India, so she's African, Indian, British. I've got a British passport, born in England, but then married a Geordie. There's like a lot of combination of stuff. But the only reason is because we share the same values. That's what it is.
Okay.
So that's how we met in that way. So for me, it's like, I would say the reason, actually, one thing, if we were just talking about dating, I used to always just go in, when I was in London before, I was like, I wanted to go and date loads of different people. And I used to always look for the perfect person. But actually, I flipped it around and said, hang on, I need to look at myself and what am I bringing to the table? I'm always looking at what's anyone else bringing to the table. I need to think about, am I actually in the position where I'm ready? So yeah, I would say when I actually was serious about that, I did different things. I remember I did this one course called Restoring the Foundations, and it was talking about restoring the childhood trauma or looking at all this kind of stuff in your life. Restore your own foundations. And then it was surprising, in 2 months' time, that was when we ended up meeting, because I was in a different place. So yeah, I would say if you want to look at like how, I think, you work on yourself, and then kind of, if you look at someone with the same values, your vibe attracts your tribe kind of thing. I think you will find someone who, is compatible in that way. That's my experience anyway.
Have you also got a shitload of money?
In this job, in the charity, if you work in a charity in this industry, I don't think you're doing it for the money. That's what I would say. So no, I say I've got riches, which are beyond money, which is because of the experiences that I've had and the relationships that I've got. I would say I'm rich. Yeah, I always joke around saying that, like, I've got spiritual riches and I've got rich experiences, which I don't think you can put money on. So they're my two things that I think. My wife, to be fair, was attracted to that. I didn't think a certain way, and like I've had experiences in different cultures. I don't just have this narrow-minded way of seeing the world, and I think that was one thing of like, okay, this guy's like trying to do this and stuff, and but she's got a better job than me anyway. Well, she did have before we had a baby, so
Yeah, it's just you don't hear that these days. Honestly, like it's incredible. She's a rarity. You probably don't know, but she is. I'm out here, so
yeah. But it's hard though. Like living in London, I remember being here, and it's hard. Like, you live so close to people but never see them. It's a weird place that you're in. Like you can meet lots of people and have lots of different acquaintances, but that depth with people is hard. And the world we're in now, there's like when there's such a shallow society that we've created, this fake virtual world with people who like it, that don't even like you, don't really like you, and we've just created a society where we buy clothes and try and get more money to impress people who don't even like. It's just messed up. So you're talking about that doesn't exist. We connected on a deeper level on things that, like I say, are actual, like we said, we believe we're trying to be transformed from the inside out because of our faith, right? And our relationship with God. And that's the thing that actually people always look at the outside. What have you got? How much money have you got? What car you drive? What job you do? But we actually stripped that all away. I didn't know what she did until a few months into knowing her, and so it's one of those things. It was like, it was different, but we got to know each other on a level before we told each other.
I don't think we ever care. I don't think guys ever care what the girl does. But I think girls usually care what the guy does. That's why I asked you if you got a shitload of money.
No, it was interesting. When I met her, I was actually staying in a tent. I stayed in a tent, When I slept out when I was studying, I used to commute down from Nottingham, and I'd sleep down in a tent. And at that point, I wanted to do everything I could to access that second degree because I knew that was something that would help me in the role I was going to do. And I did what I wanted to do, what I could do to be able to do that. So when I actually met her, I was probably at the place where I had the least money that I ever had. but I was rich in other ways because I had all like this vision about what I was trying to do. And that was something that I think she was resonated with a bit, probably being brought up in Kenya. She's seen that, like what people face a lot of the time, you know? And so she was like, actually, this guy wants to do something about it. Fair play, and has enabled me to do what I'm doing. So, yeah.
Ben, what are like your future endeavors? What's next? What are you working on at the moment, and what's coming up?
Well, we're just launched some new virtual training. So we've got 3 levels of training. We've got level 1, which is basic training, getting the coach to be started. Level 2, which is deeper training. So we look at how do you holistically help a young person there to develop technically, physically, socially, psychologically, spiritually.
Is this just football?
This is all sports, because sports friends.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's level 2. We've just rolled that out this year. So then and level 3 is wider. So level 3 is around like the community. What's in your community which can help you in your community. So that's what's next in the future.
You guys use sports as a tool to engage with people from certain communities,
young people,
young people, and work with them.
The coach works with the young person. So everything's about the coach and the young person. The coach is that person who's a role model to the young people. So then that place becomes a mentor, becomes more than a coach.
Yeah, and it's beyond sport.
It's beyond that. Yeah, you teach them things that they can then use in everyday life. You teach them discipline. You teach them integrity, honesty, all these kind of things, which hopefully is going to be something that can be translated into society, whether they go into different jobs or into their marriage or whatever it looks like. Yeah. That's what our whole ethos is around, is that coach and the kid. That's what we do.
Let's put religion to one side. Would you recommend for men to get married today?
Ooh. Wow. I think it's very hard for me to then the reason why my marriage is a Christian marriage, right? I believe in that because it's like man and woman leave their parents, become one flesh, right? And that for me is like the safe space where you're able to try and build a family and then thrive, right?
Right.
And in that place, you've got that level of commitment and everything, which is then the place where you can build together, right? So I would say, I know that in this day and age, people get married later or don't get married because of how expensive it is.
And people are less religious.
And but even just looking at the power of marriage, I think there's so much good stuff about being married. Everyone's worried about you go to the next one, there's always a next better option, whatever, or worried about I just think when you are married, there's this amazing place where you can really build something incredible where you two can work together and do that, So marriage, people are maybe moving away from it, but for me, it's that place where we share everything. We share our bank accounts, we share our house. There's something which provides stability, which is in this world where we don't have much trust and stuff like that. For me, regardless if it's a Christian thing or ever, a religious thing, for me, marriage is a great thing. Sharing
bank account, sharing this, that, living together, all of that. How does a relationship and marriage, you can still do the same thing?
Yeah, well, you can still live together and stuff like that. I think.
What is it about marriage that's why?
But
why?
This is the thing with it. This is why I can't really park religion, because it's we believe there's 3 strands. There's me here and there's God, and there's there's a triangle, right? If God's at the top, me in here. If we are together, we're trying to fulfill each other, complete each other. It doesn't happen. But we believe that with this triangle, we could look at both getting closer to God, and then in turn, we'll grow together like that. So it's 3 strands, not 2. So that's why it's hard to take that out, because if you do take that off the triangle, which is what we do in society, take this out, then you've got 2. And then you're trying to meet each other's needs in that way. People will do that and are doing that. But I'm saying when you have that 3, that's why I believe it is a powerful thing, because I'm not just looking at her to complete me.
Yeah.
I'm now looking at something and I'm trying to not just please her, I'm living for God. And that's why it changes the dynamics, you see.
Right.
So you're right in saying that you can do all that stuff, bank accounts aside. You can do all that, yeah, of course. But of course, in a religious sense, whether you're Christian, Muslim, whatever, there's probably people going to say that I'm not my level of accountability to her is, I'm not just accountable to her, I'm accountable to higher power, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So it's very hard for me to take that out because it's the triangle, right?
Okay, so here's a statement then I'm going to say to you. Without religion or culture, there's no point getting married because it won't it probably won't work.
It's an interesting statement to unpack.
What do you think of? Yes, you agree with me or disagree?
I'm just thinking of examples with it. I mean, I think that
in general, you might know an example or two, but generally speaking, what do you think?
Hard to make sweeping generalizations, but yeah, I just think from my experience, marriage is a great thing. Everyone's looking for a safe space, that ultimate place of vulnerability. That ultimate place where you can be vulnerable with someone and trust someone.
You have the religion.
But without that, without that,
okay.
Just saying to be a safe space to be vulnerable with someone. The marriage, the whole point is that you give your everything to someone and someone gives everything to you. That is something I do think we are longing for, that everyone's longing for that safe space to connect with someone, have that intimacy where you're not worried about all this other stuff. So whether you take out that top of that triangle or not, my personal opinion is that a lot of the problems and stuff that we see, all the sexual diseases, all that kind of thing, I think marriage is a great thing, regardless if you're religious or not. Personally, people might disagree and you might say you're missing out on blah, blah, blah. But for me, I would say it's an amazing thing that in the right context and in the right way, if you're both connected and want to see each other thrive and become the best version of yourself, I think it's a great thing.
On behalf of your role at Sports Friends, what's your one final message to the world?
I think my role with Sports Friends, I think with directive training, I always say it's like being more than a coach. I think if you're a coach, you will impact someone more in a lifetime than an average person will. So if you're a coach, don't underestimate the value that you have when you're a role model for young people. Mm. And honestly, the power of sport to be able to really to teach life thing, we call them teachable moments, right? To bring teachable moments into people's lives, I think is an amazing thing. So that power of sport is so important. So I think that's a message I'd like to have, and trying to bring that holistic change and transformation, I think is around that education, around walking with people and really kind of not, like you said, not just giving out, but really looking at that education, looking at how we can all play a part in helping to help those who are under-resourced. We can all do that. You know, whatever role we're in, we can all do that. Whether it is to give financially, whether it is to go or whatever, I would say if anyone's listening, if you want to get involved in some charity things, get involved in something which is beyond your normal, I think it's well worth doing, being part of a cause, not an applause. How about that?
Cool. At least 5 people are going to watch this.
There we go.
Maybe one.
My mum.
Nice one, Ben.
Nice. Enjoyed that. Thanks, man.
Cheers.